All right, let's dive into the secret language of the economy. We're going to grab this student's microeconomics cheat sheet. You know, the one that looks like a bunch of intimidating formulas, and we're going to turn it into a powerful toolkit, a way for you to understand the world around you a whole lot better. So, let's get right to it.
I mean, think about it. When you buy a cup of coffee, it feels pretty fair, right? You've got tons of choices, the prices are competitive, but what about your internet bill or your power company? Suddenly, you've got maybe one or two choices if you're lucky, and the prices feel, well, not so flexible. That feeling, right there, that's what microeconomics is all about.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start in the economist's dream world, a perfect market. Then we'll see why that perfect world is such an important measuring stick. After that, we're going to crash right back into reality to understand the messy markets we actually live in, look at the consequences, and finally, put together our brand new economic toolkit.
You know, to make sense of something really complex and messy, scientists first build a simple, perfect model in a lab. Well, economists do the exact same thing. Theirs is called perfect competition, and believe me, it is the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about.
Okay, so for this perfect market to exist, you need 4 key ingredients. 1, a ton of buyers and sellers. 2, everybody knows everything, perfect information. And 3 and 4, companies can jump into or out of the market whenever they want, no barriers. And when you mix all that together, no single company gets to decide the price. They are all price takers. They just have to accept the market price. And that leads to this one beautiful, simple rule. The price you pay is the same as the marginal revenue, which is the same as the average revenue. Basically, what you pay is exactly what the firm gets for selling you one more thing. Simple.
So why do we even care about this fantasy land? Well, because it gives us a gold standard, a benchmark for what a truly efficient market looks like. A market that gets the absolute most value out of the resources we have. The big question is, how does this magic actually happen? At the very heart of it all is this idea of equilibrium. It's the market's natural sweet spot. It's that one magic price point where the amount of stuff sellers want to sell is exactly the same as the amount of stuff buyers want to buy. The whole system is in balance. It's found its resting point. And this equilibrium state leads to this really powerful concept called Pareto optimality. Now, it sounds super academic, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It just means we have squeezed every last drop of efficiency out of the system. You literally cannot make one person better off without making someone else worse off. This is Adam Smith's invisible hand right there in action. In that perfect market, this amazing outcome just happens, all by itself. It's kind of like magic.
Okay, theory time is over. Let's get real. The world we live in, the markets we shop in every single day, they are not so perfect. Most of them are what economists call imperfectly competitive. And this, my friends, is where things get really, really interesting.
Take a look at this. This chart basically shows you the whole spectrum. Over on one end, you've got our perfect world, perfect competition. On the total opposite end, you've got a monopoly, just one single company calling all the shots. And in between, you've got the stuff we see all the time, monopolistic competition and oligopolies. And what separates them? It really just boils down to how many companies there are, how different their products are, and how hard it is for a new player to get in the game.
Let's put 2 of these side by side. A monopoly has 0 competition. Think about a company that holds the patent for a life-saving drug. On the other hand, monopolistic competition has lots of firms, but they all try to make their product seem unique. Just think about all the coffee shops on a single street. They're all selling coffee, but one has the best vibe, another has a specialty roast. They're all differentiating themselves to get an edge. And here is the absolute key difference. Unlike those firms in our perfect world, these companies have some power to set prices. They still produce up to the point where their marginal cost equals their marginal revenue, but, and this is a huge but, they can charge a price that is higher than what it costs them to make one more item. That little gap right there between their price and their marginal cost, that is their market power in a nutshell.
And then you have the oligopoly. This is a market with just a handful of huge players. Think cell phone companies or the big airlines. The number one feature here is interdependence. It's like a high-stakes chess match. If one airline decides to cut its prices, you can bet the others are going to react, and fast. This strategic back and forth is so complex, economists had to create an entire field called game theory just to figure it out.
So what? Who cares if markets aren't perfect? Well, it matters. It matters a lot. Because when we move away from that perfect ideal and into this world of market power, you get clear winners and losers. And sometimes you get what economists call a market failure.
Let's look at how companies value what their employees produce. there are two terms here. The first is VMP, the value of marginal product. That's the full market value of what one more worker creates. The second is MRP, the marginal revenue product. That's the actual extra cash that worker brings into that specific company. Now, in a perfect world, those two numbers are identical. But in our imperfect world, a gap opens up. The money the firm actually gets from that worker is now less than the product's full value on the market.
And that gap has a very real consequence. Because companies pay wages based on the revenue a worker brings in, the MRP, it means the wage they pay is actually less than the full value that worker created for society, the VMP. There's a name for this difference. Economists call it monopolistic exploitation. And this isn't just theory, okay? This concept is at the very center of huge debates about things like the minimum wage and the power of unions.
This is actually a perfect example of a bigger idea called market failure. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's any time the market, just left to its own devices, fails to produce an efficient outcome. It's when the invisible hand fumbles and everyone acting in their own best interest ends up with a result that's worse for the whole group.
One of the biggest causes of this is something called asymmetric information. It just means one person in a deal knows a lot more than the other person. Think about buying a used car, the famous lemons problem. The seller knows if it's a piece of junk, but you, the buyer, don't. That fear can actually scare all the good cars out of the market. Or what about moral hazard? Once you have full insurance on your phone, you might get just a little bit more careless with it, right? Of course, your behavior changes because you're not carrying all the risk anymore.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground, I know. We went from perfect theory to the messy real world. But the whole point of this isn't for you to memorize a bunch of definitions. It's to give you a new set of glasses, a new toolkit to decode the world.
So look at this final cheat sheet one more time. These aren't just questions for an exam, they are the fundamental operating system of our economy. They explain how a company decides how much stuff to make, how you decide what to buy. These are the hidden rules that shape everything from the price of gas to the salary you earn.
And look, if you take away only one thing from all of this, please make it this right here, the golden rule of perfect competition. This one little equation, it's the North Star. It's the ideal state of perfect efficiency. And from now on, every time a real-world market breaks this rule, you'll know. You'll know that market power is at play, and you can start asking why and who benefits.
So, the next time you buy a plane ticket, or you sign up for an internet plan, or you even just pick a place for lunch, you'll have the tools. You can see the invisible forces pulling the strings. The theory isn't stuck on the page anymore, it's all around you. So my question to you is, what will you spot first?